I remember a little boy, perhaps 10 or 11, no parents, not a good-looking kid, and not a kid who knew how to act or how to relate. He was a kid easy to make fun of. In fact, being made fun of was the only attention he ever got, which worked for a while. But soon, that too became unbearable, and after a particularly humiliating incident, he broke from the group, ran as fast and as hard as he could toward the lake where all were headed to swim, and then out into the lake farther and farther and farther until he was gone forever. He had no one to be with him. I've carried this story in my heart for many years, and as long as I live, that little boy will never die. He points me again and again to the utter power and the urgent necessity of the promise, I will never leave you.
Hi again, everybody. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, featuring thoughts and teachings from the more than 50 years of work put together by Landon Saunders. On today's episode, we drop in on one of the messages that Landon prepared in the 1980s for friends of Heartbeat, those who helped make his work possible. Today's episode is entitled, I Will Never Leave You. Here again is Landon Saunders.
You know, when I think about the ideas that lie at the very center of my life, I find that they are very, very few in number. I've not permitted much clutter to gather in my soul. And I'm going to talk about one of those ideas for a few moments today, the theme of which is, I will never leave you. And then I'll have some additional comments and some questions. I've seen the look on a child's face. I've seen it on adults' faces. I even think I've seen it on puppies' faces. The look, please don't leave me. And then I've seen the look on the faces of those who have been left, abandoned by everyone. And I must say, of all the faces I've seen the world over, I've seen no face like that of a person who is truly, totally alone. I remember a little boy, perhaps 10 or 11, no parents, not a good-looking kid, and not a kid who knew how to act or how to relate. He was a kid easy to make fun of. In fact, being made fun of was the only attention he ever got, which worked for a while. But soon that too became unbearable, and after a particularly humiliating incident, he broke from the group, ran as fast and as hard as he could toward the lake where all were headed to swim, and then out into the lake farther and farther and farther until he was gone forever. He had no one to be with him. I've carried this story in my heart for many years, and as long as I live, that little boy will never die. He points me again and again to the utter power and the urgent necessity of the promise, I will never leave you. If you should climb to the top of the highest mountain, if you should journey to the farthest regions of outer space, if you should descend to the deepest abyss, or if you've been hurt until all your words have dried up, if you've been rejected until life no longer seems tolerable, if you've failed in ways that will haunt your dreams to the end, yes, if you've swum and swum farther and farther and farther, even there is that quietly insistent voice that lies within and behind all reality, I will never leave you. The heart cries out, but oh, how I need that promise made concrete in you, you who are near me, who can touch me and who can whisper my name and make me know I am known and worthwhile and cared for. We, you and I, bring this promise near. We give it flesh and blood and voice. And one of the places we try to bring the promise near is marriage. Several years ago, I wrote what have probably been the most quoted words I've ever written. They go like this. Marriage means a man and a woman looking deeply into each other's eyes and saying, I will never leave you. Others may come and go in your life, but I never will. If you wrinkle, I will love you. If you fail, I'll stay with you. If you get sick, I'll feed you, bathe you, sit up with you, anything except leave you. I will never leave you. These words may have real meaning for you. They may perhaps stir joy in you, or they may be painful to you. Divorce may have touched you, for example, or someone you love, or you may be in a very bad marriage. But failure, whether yours or others, should never weaken this promise. Through your suffering, you have more reasons than ever to champion the promise, albeit with greater gentleness and grace. The truth is, one of the greatest challenges we face in our society is to hold this promise dear and sacred in the presence of unrelenting human failure. The promise gives us power for our own failures and in spite of our failures. The promise gives power to our word, our commitments, our relationships, and our appropriate and needed love for ourselves. How deeply I believe that those who make good this promise will do more to heal the hurt of our society than all the laws ever passed. This is the leaven the world needs, and the little leaven leavens the whole lump. This promise, I will never leave you, with all that surrounds it, is what makes you, you, your truest and best and greatest self. Such a self is the greatest gift you can give your spouse, your children, your friends. Now, let's change gears for a moment and talk about the thought, I will never leave you, in a little different way. I expect you have some questions about it. One person said after they heard it, yeah, but what about those persons who want to be with you, but you don't want to be with them? Deliver me from some of the kooks who want to be with me. Thanks, but no thanks. Someone else said, sounds good, but how far do you take it? Doesn't the other person's behavior have something to do with your staying with them? Do you stay with them no matter how they treat you? Who wants to stay with a slob or a nerd or a too sweet, sentimental, drippy, fuzzy, oozy, wimpy, wet noodle? Another wondered how many people you could make this promise to. Does it apply to all relationships or just a few? And still another, this never leave you thing is good. It's like being a rock, something, someone you can count on. And that's true, but a rock can be very hard. Actually, the promise, I will never leave you, is mostly about you. It's about how you build your life and your relationships. And to do that well, you'll need a little solitude. A poet once said, let there be spaces in your togetherness. Now, you don't need much space. Perhaps only the time you have between the time you leave work and the time you arrive at your front door, or some other similar time in your day. This provides you with enough time to think about something, listen to something that will make your heart overflow. Now we've touched one of the most important things of all in relationship, the overflowing heart. To be with another person, you need a heart that overflows. That makes for the best, the strongest, the most interesting, and the most joyful relationships of all. Now, let me share with you, for some of you it'll be a reminder, an idea that I find helpful. It's called the bucket theory. The bucket theory says a person wants to have a full bucket of self-esteem. The question is how to get it. What most people seem to do is dip out of everyone else's bucket in an attempt to fill their own. And I must tell you, that's not a very pretty picture. But I've seen it over and over in marriages, between children, between parents and children, in the workplace. People dipping out of others' buckets. Hold still there. I want to dip out of your bucket. And you dip and dip and dip, and the other person is more and more emptied. The problem is, this does little to fill your own heart. And it certainly wreaks havoc in the life of another person. Pretty soon, that relationship will end. That's for sure. Just imagine coming home in the evening operating out of that principle. You come in, it's been a tough day, you feel tired, deflated, nobody meets you at the door asking about your day, and nobody does anything for you. And so what do? You start dipping out of everyone else's bucket, trying to replenish yourself. And everyone else is trying to do the same thing. What a mess. Soon the spouses decide they're not made for each other. And you decide that you've got greedy idiots for children. Nobody has any interest in staying with anybody else. Instead of building moments where you're fun to be with, you build moments where you're hard to be with. On the other hand, if you took a few moments to think, to get to the overflow, and you can do it, and you meet others in your life seeking to fill their buckets, it has the most curious effect on your own needs. You're suddenly filled as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's that simple. I'm only suggesting two things. One, this is a better and happier way of thinking about this. And two, you are fully capable of being this kind of person if you want to. One other image. I once saw a play in which the central metaphor was that life should be like ballroom dancing, that we don't knock each other down, that we make each other look better. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers made each other look even better because of the way they just sort of flowed with each other. This whole concept is about how to be with others, how not to block others, get in their way as they seek to be healed. One thing I'm sure of, those who try to live this will never be without someone to be with them.
I will never leave you. I'm going to work harder on that promise. We hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. And if you have, we encourage you to take a moment to rate, review, and follow the podcast wherever you get your information. This really helps as others are looking for the same kind of material. Heartbeat the podcast is made possible by Friends of Heartbeat, who invite you to visit the website at thisisheartbeat.com. That's thisisheartbeat.com, where you'll find more information and other materials available from Landon Saunders. And of course, we hope you'll join us again next time for another edition of This is Heartbeat, the podcast.